There is some magic that comes with player development in the game of baseball. Learn about your team's stars of tomorrow today on the Prospect Wizard podcast. Serving up the magic is the Prospect Wizard himself, Greg Mroz. Welcome on into the first ever Prospect Wizard podcast. I am Greg Mroz, your host, the Prospect Wizard, and I hope to, over the course of our time doing this podcast, we're going to try and do one of these per day. They may be recorded on a day where we do multiple episodes because we're only going to keep these to 5, maybe 10 minutes. But at the same time, we want to make sure that they're succinct and informative to keep you, the viewer or the listener, informed about the direction of the prospects of your favorite team's franchise. Now, why do I think prospects are important? Well, to give you a little background, I was a play-by-play broadcaster for the A-ball affiliate of the Seattle Mariners for 2 years, the Clinton Lumber Kings located in Clinton, Iowa. And during my time there, I saw a variety of different prospects come in, guys with great power, great speed, power arms, junk ball arms, guys who just couldn't find the strike zone, and then guys who could never miss the strike zone. So, when you look at player development, it is what is necessary in order to sustain a franchise for the long term. The gold standard of that is the Chicago Cubs, who, when Theo Epstein came in, built their franchise from the ground up and put together a farm system that eventually blossomed into what you have now. And that is the best team in baseball with the most depth for a position player system that there is among any of the Major League Baseball franchises, all 30 of them. And you've got depth at the Major League level, and you've got the ability to sign free agents because you have done such a good job at justifying coming to Chicago because you have such a good foundation that you've built from the ground up. And you look at the teams in the Cubs system. They're all stacked with guys that other teams would want, and that's because the Cubs have great scouting, great player development, and an understanding of when those players are ready to go. Now, on this podcast, and if you're watching us, you have found us on Prospect Wizard, the YouTube channel, and then if you're listening to us, you have found us on Prospect Wizard, the SoundCloud channel. Kind of channeling my inner Spaceballs in terms of how I described our platforms. But if you want to interact with us on social media, you can do so on Facebook. Like us on Facebook, The Prospect Wizard. And you can follow us on Twitter at Prospect Wizard. And if you want to get in touch with me, well, there's a couple of different ways. You can tweet at my personal account, at Greg D. Mroz, or you can email us at prospectwizard@gmail.com. That's prospectwizard@gmail.com. So, I want to take each and every one of these episodes to describe one player, maybe two players. But our first player is, according to MLB Pipeline, the number one prospect in all of baseball and one of the most Major League ready guys. We're not just going to talk about guys who are close to Major League ready. We're going to talk about guys that haven't even gotten above the short season level. Big example of that is going to be Kyle Lewis when we get to the Kyle Lewis episode eventually, and that's going to be a fun one to do because Kyle Lewis is an absolute stud. But Yoan Moncada was a switch-hitting Cuban infielder that signed for $31 million in the 2015 offseason by the Boston Red Sox. Spent 2 years in the Red Sox system where he started to develop as a good middle infield prospect. During his first season in the States with the Greenville Drive of the South Atlantic League, low A level, he hit .278, 8 home runs, 38 RBIs, on-base percentage of .360, .380 I should say, and the slugging of .438. Now this past year, he split time between high A Salem and double A Portland. .307 batting average in Salem, .277 batting average with double A Portland. He also got some time with a big league club with the Red Sox. He hit .211 this season, .211, with 1 RBI. He struck out 12 times in 19 at-bats. Now remember, this guy's only 21 years old. He was the centerpiece of the trade this offseason that sent White Sox lefty ace Chris Sale to the Boston Red Sox to help further bolster a rotation that already had David Price and reigning Cy Young Award winner Rick Porcello. So you've got, in that Red Sox rotation now, Chris Sale, a guy who should have won a Cy Young multiple times in my opinion, or rather, he shouldn't have won it multiple times, but there are multiple instances where you could have made the case that Chris Sale was in the top 3 for Cy Young voting, and he certainly started off the 2016 season like he was going to be that premier AL Cy Young candidate. You also have David Price, who has been one of the gold standards of left-handed pitching, and then Rick Porcello, who had a career year in a Boston Red Sox uniform this year. Now, what the White Sox have done by picking up Yoan Moncada is committing to the rebuild that franchise should have had a long time ago. That's a team run by Kenny Williams and general manager Rick Hahn that has taken a philosophy of retooling instead of completely rebuilding. And I think for a team that has done a good job of drafting pitching prospects, they have not developed much position player talent outside of Tim Anderson, the former first-round pick who is going to be their shortstop of the now and of the future. Yoan Moncada has a huge offensive ceiling. He's got great bat speed. He hits the ball hard from both sides of the plate, which is something that you rarely see with a guy who is a switch hitter, and especially somebody who projects as a middle infielder. His left-handed swing has been compared to Robinson Cano, and if he can ever put up the consistent power numbers that Robbie Cano has had. Now, granted, Robinson Cano also played a majority of his career in Yankee Stadium, where, let's just face it, that is a home run hitter's haven, the new Yankee Stadium, that is. And for a left-handed hitter, you could say the old Yankee Stadium was just as much so a home run hitter's haven. Now, Moncada is not going to start 2017 on the big league roster. But what the White Sox see in him is a guy who is going to steal a lot of bases. He stole 45 bases in the minors this year. He's going to hit a decent amount of home runs. Over the course of the 106 games he played in the minor leagues this season, he hit 15 home runs and drove in 62 runs. So, he's somebody that's going to have decent power. Combined for a 407 on base this year with a 511 slugging percentage. So he's a guy who's going to get on base, and he's going to get a lot of extra base hits. So you can see why a 21-year-old Cuban, who is a middle infielder, is so highly regarded, and even at a young age. It's fascinating. When you look at the low A level, you'll see guys at the low A level who are 23, 24, even 25 years old at times that are still looking to get to high A. This guy has already made his major league debut at age 21. Now, the White Sox, they wanted Andrew Benintendi, who was the Red Sox first-round pick in 2015 out of the University of Arkansas. Now, they didn't get him, and understandably so. You put Andrew Benintendi in an outfield with Jackie Bradley Jr. and Mookie Betts, who, by all accounts, could have won the American League MVP this year. It's pretty understandable why they didn't want to get rid of Benintendi. So, you look at Yoan Moncada, he's a deserving piece for a guy like Chris Sale, who is going to be in rotation with a very team-friendly contract. Chris Sale's original extension was 5 years, $35 million. You're paying a guy like that only $7 million a year. That is well-deserving of a boatload of prospects that come back to you. Another guy that we'll talk about in future episodes, Michael Kepik. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Kepik. We'll look at some phonetics guides from some other minor league teams at some point and be able to figure that out. But at the end of the day, Yoan Moncada, let's just face it, this guy has high expectations, and deservedly so. He was given a lot of money and has already been traded as the centerpiece of a deal that includes one of the top left-handed pitchers of this decade. Now, whether Moncada pans out at the big league level, I think he will. I think Yoan Moncada is going to be a star. But the one thing that White Sox fans, and I know for those of you who are watching the video, I got White Sox signs up behind me. I was a childhood White Sox fan. Quite frankly, I haven't taken those down. I'm trying to be as impartial as humanly possible, and it also helps that we're going to do our next episode on another White Sox player, Lucas Giolito, and I think that should help attract some Nationals fans as well. But at the end of the day, when you've got a middle infield prospect with power from both sides of the plate and as much speed as Yoan Moncada does, you expect him to be part of your core for a long time. Now, the White Sox have said that Moncada's going to start the season at AAA, which we get. I don't expect the 2017 Chicago White Sox to be anything special or close to anything good. They are going to be a very young team that is rebuilding. And position player-wise, outside of Tim Anderson, Moncada eventually, power-hitting first baseman Jose Abreu, who knows if they're even going to hang on to Todd Frazier at this point. There's still a long way to go in this baseball offseason. They're not going to be that good. But they don't need to risk rushing Moncada up to the big leagues, because if he's not ready, it's not going to make any difference to the White Sox one way or another. They're more than likely not going to make the playoffs. I don't see them finishing in the top 3 of the AL Central, which is going to have a very good Cleveland Indian team once again, a Kansas City Royals team that I think is going to be a lot better, and a Detroit Tigers team that I think is going to be competitive once again. The Minnesota Twins may be better, but that still remains to be seen after a huge front office shakeup. So, Yoan Moncada, number 1 prospect in the White Sox system by MLB Pipeline, and the number 1 prospect in all of baseball by MLB Pipeline. We'll see what he can do, but I say Yoan Moncada, he deserves a 2 thumbs up from me. That's going to be our grading scale. We'll figure out something a little bit better than thumbs up. Granted, this is our first episode, so we'll have some fun. That's the end of the first Prospect Wizard podcast. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. We hope that you enjoyed the show. We'll be back with our next episode talking about another big pitching stud who could be on the south side of Chicago very early this year, former Nationals top prospect Lucas Giolito. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Prospect Wizard podcast. We'll talk to you next time.